I think it's worth making the point that it's one thing for someone else to say this. It's another thing for Tony Dungy to say this about the officiating in the Super Bowl. He tweeted, "The officials were determined to ignore every violation when the ball was in play and only call false starts, delay of game, and taunting. They maintained that posture for 58 minutes and 39 seconds. Then they started officiating. That was bad." That's the tweet. That is the entirety of what Tony said. And Bubba, I would just like to get your immediate reaction to that, because I brought it up yesterday. I was frustrated with some of the way that game was officiated late. I thought it worked against Cincinnati. Now, I did make the point that if you're a Bengal fan, I don't think you can blame the officiating for losing the Super Bowl, because the worst missed call of the day by far went overwhelmingly in your favor on the first play of the second half, and it turned into a 75-yard touchdown that almost won you the game. So when you get the brutally bad call in your favor, you can't really then complain too much when the officiating at the end goes against you. But, I mean, each call exists in a vacuum. Each moment exists in a vacuum. And that third down pass interference was just, it called it holding, was just a terrible call. A terrible call. And it does go a long way towards deciding the game. I mean, as Graziano pointed out in our meeting this morning, the Rams scored a touchdown on 9th down. They had 9 plays down there. And so, of course, they score. And that's why the whole thing felt a tad anticlimactic, and it just didn't feel right. That's why I don't believe it goes down with the greatest drives of all time. The John Taylor touchdown that also broke the Bengals' hearts, and that one in the final minute in whatever Super Bowl that was at the end of the '88 season. That one, like, Montana drives him right down the field. There weren't like 3 penalties that sort of, changed the dynamic of everything. So, Bubba, when that comes from Tony Dungy, does it carry more weight for you?
Yeah, I think, if Tony Dungy's saying it, who's someone is always very reasoned and essentially laid back and not very, very critical of those type of things, if he's saying that, I think it definitely carries more weight. And I think, honestly, I was a little taken aback and surprised. If you were to read that tweet and not say who it was from, I'd probably be still guessing it was Tony Dungy. I would have guessed that was Tony Dungy.
If I told you it was a former coach who's on television,
yeah, exactly,
you wouldn't have gotten Tony Dungy.
I would still be guessing. So, no, I think it's very surprising it was him, but I think it's a fair tweet. And I think it's we've been having this conversation for all of Sports Talk Radio, and before that, the refs, it's always a conversation. It's crazy that in 2022 we're still having this conversation, and I don't know what the solution is, but you got to think we can do something about it. But yeah, it was very surprising that was from Tony Dungy. I do think it carries a lot of weight.
Well, one of the solutions, and I've been espousing this forever, is replay. Replay gets a very bad rap. Replay is not always correctly utilized, but it is, on balance, I remain convinced, a good idea. But here's the problem. That play would not be overturned on replay. Like, if you could, it's not a challengeable call, but if you could challenge that call, they wouldn't overturn it. If you could challenge the one that went in the Bengals' favor, they would. Right? If you could look back on that and say, hey, in retrospect, there should have been a face mask called on this play, on the offense, if you could challenge that, the Bengals touchdown would have come off the board. So the answer to this problem is not instant replay, because replay not only wouldn't have solved your problem if you're Cincinnati, it would have actually made it worse.
That's right. The answer to this problem is just call the game consistently, because for the first 58 minutes of the game, there were a total of 4 penalties. In the final 2 minutes of the game, there were a total of 4 penalties, and it did sour the ending. There's no question about it. The best part of that game was that it had such great rhythm and flow, and it was not interrupted by the referees. All we ask is that you call the game consistently for 60 minutes, and the fact that that's a holding call that you see on every play. It was a terribly underthrown pass. It was a ridiculous call, and yes, the one Higgins on Ramsey was something he got away with. But if you're not going to call stuff, just don't call stuff, and most fans are fine with that.
I think that's right. And if there were only 4 calls leading up to that last drive, is what you're telling me. But one of them is the guy who runs into the end zone with his slides on, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so no one could dispute that one. You have to make that call. What just happened? Well, this idiot just ran off the sideline and he's dancing around in the end zone, even though he's not eligible to play and is wearing slides, shorts, and trying to keep his phone from falling out of his pocket. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a flag. I don't even remember the other three. The game was so clean. It was such a delight to watch.
There was a delay of game by the Rams in the first quarter. That was the only flag.
Delay of game is another one, by the way. We live in a world, and pro football, like, they measure everything to the millimeter, right? Like, they're going to go back and look. Did he step out of bounds? We can challenge the spot, all of that. And then when it comes to the delay of game, they're like, close enough. Like, did we get that off? Well, the refs got to see it go. Got to see the ball snapped. Got to look up at 0. Got to look down at it's close enough. Like, in football, the answer is never, it's close enough, except on that call, right? Like, doesn't it seem like there should be more consistency in whether there was a delay of game or not?
Is there any obvious reason why there could not be a buzzer? Like in the NBA, we have lots of buzzers, and they seem to work pretty well. That would probably work when the clock hits 0 because 0 means there's no time left.
Right.
Let's try it.
It also could easily be reviewable. Like, at the end of the day, if the clock's, if it got to 0, we can all see it. All of us watching it on television can see it. There should be someone watching it, and the play should just be blown dead. They blow it dead on a false start. They could blow it dead on delay, which they do, right? If there's delay of game and the ball is snapped, they blow it dead. They don't run the play out. Well,
right.
You could do that, but that word could come from somewhere else. It could just come down to the headset of the referee.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.